Sorry, had to.
Couldn't stand it long.
Couldn't stand it. Okay. I want to first of all welcome everyone here, board and public as well. And I'd like to call this meeting to order. We are starting a little late because of a couple things going on, 4:06. We're just going to do a roll call. This is a work study, so this is a non-voting meeting. So this is just for discussion. But I would like to just do roll call. Cam Taylor. Shannon. Tracy Parker.
Paul McCoy. Steve Wozlowski. Larry Hinton.
Erica Brinker. And Pam, would you mind doing our invocation for us? Father God, we come before you this afternoon with grateful hearts, thankful for another day of life. We pray, Father, that we have used this day and walked in your will. I ask, Father, that you would be present as we have conversations that are necessary for our public libraries. I pray that each one of us has come prepared and that we will contribute to the conversation. And most of all, Lord, I just pray that you be with us, guide our thoughts and our words as we work for the community. Thank you for your son, Jesus, and in his name I pray. Amen. I first of all want to apologize because I will be using my phone a lot today. I left part of my printed just information that I had at the house, so I apologize. I am doing only business, weather business. So I really considered whether to do public comment or not today, and the reason is that typically, very commonly, it's only on agenda subjects, and because this is a work study, it is a non-voting situation, but I have really thought about it, and I wanted to, I believe it's to my discretion, and if I'm wrong on that, I apologize, but I just felt like it was the better thing to do, if y'all are going to be present, to give the opportunity. So I am going to limit it to 2 minutes because I do want to let us get to business of just talking through these things. So I do need you to give your name and your address, please. But so number one is Connie Ray.
Connie Ray, 929 Aqua Drive, Gallatin, Tennessee. Thank you all for being here and serving. I'm going to keep it really short and sweet. I think books from the libraries that can contain heavy or highly sensitive content should include clear content warning labels so readers will know what they're getting ready to check out before they check them out. I think that would just be a really good thing for our community. Thank you.
All right, Denise. Please tell me how to do it. Hiram. I wanted to make sure. So Denise Hiram.
Hello, I'm Denise Hyam, 265 Summers Lane, Henderson, Middle. I am definitely in favor of removing books that are highly sensitive, especially to our children. I do not think that they need to be in our library, at least not in the children's section. And I just ask that y'all think about our future kids and remove these books.
All right, next is Joanna Daniels.
Joanna Daniels, 152 Shadow Haven Way and 1202 Beach Grove Road. Thank you so much for allowing public comment. When I was on the board, we always allowed public comment, even at work studies and at work sessions, because we always wanted the public to feel as though they were able to be heard, even if we weren't doing anything that had to do with business. And so, my property taxes go towards these public libraries, and honestly, I don't believe that tax money should be used for books that have to do with things that go against the foundation of the country, or even transgender, or something that's highly, big emotional topics, especially when it comes to fiction. And we don't publicly use our tax dollars to fund movies that deal with this, with any of these subjects. And this isn't a First Amendment thing. This is a tax dollar thing. And our tax dollars are told what we can use it to do, to be taught in public schools. They don't allow half these conversations in public schools. And so our tax dollars should not be used to fund any of these books. Our tax dollars are being used as a slush fund for authors that want to write about these books. And we shouldn't allow them to use public libraries for that purpose. So I hope you guys do something with these books and get them out of the library. So thank you so much.
Okay, Suzanne Dunn.
Hi, thank you again for having this, and thank you for spending your time doing all of this. 1424 Carter Rock Springs Drive, Gallatin. You know, you get the same. We are finding, as time goes on, that transgenderism and the whole ideology and the practices that follow suit are changing. They are changing. Young adults are deciding not to have drastic changes in their lives. Younger children realize they grow out of that gender confusion, and the AMA has now said, and these are gender-affirming physicians who have said this, that this type of physical surgery, and I know we're not talking about that with books, should not be given to anybody under 19. The books that we have specifically promoting transgenderism for children and what you call young adults. To me, a young adult is a 21-year-old. A child is still 18, even if teenagers don't think so. A 15-year-old doesn't think they're a child. So I am very much for the removal of all the material, because the one leads into the other. You are feeding, you're promoting that type of thinking, child, teenager, young adult, and it's all very, very harmful. That's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
All right, Jill Cornelius.
Cornelius, yeah.
Okay.
Good evening, Jill Cornelius, Morning Cobbler in Hendersonville. I was not preparing to plan. I thought it was very clear on the agenda that public comment wasn't allowed, so if I was scatterbrained, that's why. I reviewed the books that are being mentioned. I don't think that there was anything on this list today that even comes close to what a lot of the fear mongers come up here and speak about quite frequently. So I will say, as a taxpayer, as someone who loves to read, knows how safe our libraries are, I cannot wait for the day when you all get to spend your time working on things that are actually going to do great things in our libraries, and start working with our librarians to improve community outreach, get more people with cars, because if there's anything economically that has been studied on libraries, it's for about every $1 that community spends on their libraries, they get back over threefold. It's a great use of investment. It impacts so many people in so many different socioeconomic classes, and that is super exciting to me, to know how much we can do. And we have great librarians that have the skill set and have the passion to want to prioritize those, and instead of us coming back for every single meeting, hearing false facts that books make you want to chop off your genitals. I'm sorry. It is so ridiculous. It almost seems like very sorry that we're continuously having to spend so much of our community's time on these type of conversations. I very much enjoyed the last meeting and seeing how this board composition interacted so differently. Thank you for that. It was a breath of fresh air, and I'm really excited about moving forward as a community and not dividing us anymore by continuing to allow this kind of conversation. So thank you.
And then Jesse McKinney. Okay, I'm going to be short as well, hopefully. I say that as a teacher who gets in front of the class and oftentimes it's not so short. But I want to focus on what's on the agenda, which is, Jesse McKinney, Waterview Drive, Hendersonville. I'm going to focus on the agenda, which is the books that were reviewed for age appropriateness. And I sent an email and I want to reiterate this, that you have hired library directors based on their expertise, their education, their knowledge of library policies and procedures, and they know their libraries. And I just ask that in this age appropriateness review, that you would defer to these directors as the experts and the managers and directors of those libraries. I would hate to see where we need to micromanage and litigate every single title at the board level. You've hired these people, let them do their jobs. If a library director believes that a book has been misshelved and is not age appropriate, then they should be empowered to move that book to the appropriate place. It does not need board action. Similarly, if any patron already goes into the library and says, this book is inappropriate, I want to challenge this book, there is a process in place for that. So let's follow that process. I don't understand why we need to make things more complicated. You were asked to review your library collections for age appropriateness, and now you have done that. We saw that some libraries reported to the Secretary of State, we reviewed our titles, nothing is age inappropriate, everything is shelved correctly, no action is needed, and the Secretary has said in media interviews that that is fine. That is all that he wanted done, is that there is a review done just to make sure that law is being followed. So if that's the case, then I would hope that no books need to be removed. And the second thing I'll say is that some conversation has happened around a special section for books that might be sensitive or hot topics or heavy or whatever. And I would discourage that. We have a very wide variety of people in our community. We have different values, we have different morals, we have different standards, we have different religions, and we're not all going to agree what's heavy, what's sensitive, what's divisive. And so for one person to make that judgment for another parent and to move that in, I don't think is appropriate. That takes my rights away as a parent, that I have to then go to a special section that says you or you have determined that it's inappropriate. You know what I mean?
All right. Next is Sumner County.
Sheet 22, Prior Drive, Gallatin. Thank you for your time and continuing to dig through this stuff. And I'm just asking that you really look at these books and think about the constituents that you represent. You represent Sumner County, and overwhelmingly, the people who come to these meetings are asking you to remove these books. I've been to a lot of these meetings, and there's a great majority that's asking. We're not asking anybody to ban a book. You can go to Amazon and get any book you want. Barnes & Noble has books, but we're talking about our library for Sumner County children. We're asking you to remove these books. But yes, things are highly suggestive to children. Do we give 16-year-olds alcohol? We don't. There's a reason. Their brains can't make correct decisions on, I guess, if one glass is enough or what. I don't know. We have rules for children, and we want to call them young adults. They're children, okay? They can't quit school. They can't drive a car unless you sign saying that you're financially responsible for them. They're still children, and I don't think these things need to be pushed as the new cool thing. I'm not saying everybody's going to run off and chop off body parts, but we begin to question things, and there's just questions that don't need to be asked. Okay, I mean, it's really simple. This is a pretty new thing. We don't have to have lots of books in our libraries about this. And just because one person thinks this is okay because of their ideology doesn't mean Sumner County as a whole thinks that's okay. We have an executive order saying don't spend any tax dollars on transgender items. Boom. Don't spend any tax dollars on these items. We don't want these books in our library. And again, I've been to lots of meetings. I feel like I'm speaking for the vast majority of Sumner County when I say these things. Thank you so much.
And then Jack Elson.
Thank you. I also did not come prepared with a written remark, but I certainly can make some remarks here. First of all, I would encourage, yes, let's do follow the rules. I apologize. Jack Elston, 1096 Kennesaw Boulevard, California. And I would say, yes, let's indeed follow the rules. We've got the Constitution. We've got the Tennessee Constitution. I think we ought to follow those rules in terms of not banning viewpoint discrimination, or not allowing viewpoint discrimination. The Tennessee Constitution says very clearly, no man shall impose their conscience on another man. So let's follow that, okay? As far as the medical issue, I wanted to address that. No, the AMA has not advised against transgender affirming care for children under 10. What they've recently commented on is surgical interventions for minors, but not social transition, puberty blockers, or other forms of gender affirming care that may apply to younger children. It supports evidence-based gender affirming care. It believes surgical interventions in minors should generally be deferred to adulthood because evidence is limited. So let's be careful in claiming what the AMA says and what the AMA does not say. And finally, we talked about the constitutionality. We talked about the medical aspect. Last time I talked about the biblical aspect, and I'm surprised people have not quoted the Bible here. Okay, but I would say that many in Sumner County are Christians. Okay, not all adopt the same Christian doctrine. We've got a variety of different Christian doctrines, so I don't think we should be imposing our particular denomination's Christian doctrine on some other Christians. Okay. Specifically in terms of transgender, a lot of people say, transgender is not even discussed in the Bible. The word does not appear in the Bible. It certainly doesn't appear in the Bible. But an aspect of transgender does appear, and that is litigant. Okay? And we know what the Bible says about this. Okay? Isaiah says very clearly, it says, what of... A second. Well, I'll just read this one. What of the eunuch that says, I am only a dry tree? And the Lord says,
Thank you, Jack.
to eunuchs who keep my Sabbath and please me, I will give them a temple and a memorial list with a name written in sons and daughters.
Thank you to all of you who spoke. I appreciate you. It's hard to come up here, and I know that with all of you, no one knew what I was going to choose because I didn't know what I was going to choose until I walked in the room. So nobody had any kind of thing. I appreciate. I know it probably felt a lot more scattered because it wasn't able to be thought through as well, but I appreciate you sharing. Thank you. That brings us to our subject at hand. It's just a work study. There's no vote here. This is just on the topic. We're going to have discussion of the book list that was compiled from library directors pertaining to what Secretary of State Trey Hargett sent to them in a letter. So this was the list, just a compiled list of what each had come up with. I know that we put this work study together so that we would have time to go into the locations or even online and look up these books. I don't know if you've had the chance to go and look at the books or look them up. I have gotten to look through 95% of them, and so the discussion is open to discuss whatever you'd like to about the books. This was something that was requested by some of our board members, this is not really requested by me, but whoever was wanting to discuss this list, if you have thoughts on the books, does anybody have openers? I mean, it was just presented, I think, by Paul, but whoever would like to start this.
I would first like to kind of clarify work study rules. Are Robert's rules suspended during a work study? And is it all just talking? Is it raising hands? I've never been in a work study.
Yeah, so, I mean, it is more casual. There is still a bit of order to it, but it is, you know, it's to be civil and conversational, and
There's no motions, no votes.
there's no motions, no.
They'll be talking.
And this is it until, and then adjournment, so, yeah.
We don't have to suspend any rules to talk to the library directors.
Yeah, that's a great question too.
Yeah.
Can we ask library directors that get them involved and all that? Eric, or Jason?
My understanding is that roundtable is meant for our, I mean, like the work study is for us to discuss. I mean, I think we could come into an agreement of having that, but it would be an agreement of our table.
I think that would be beneficial, to be able to talk with the director.
I can be in agreement of that.
I agree. No need to second.
But I just don't have, right, can't vote on it. So, but I'm at a loss in a sense of, I did not ask for, like, this was something that was specifically requested and voted for by other people. So I'm just trying to give the opportunity for the discussion as was requested. I'm just trying to honor that. Otherwise, we can start looking at the list and go down the line if you want, but I just knew that was a request.
So I guess my question is, for the libraries that listed titles that they felt might not be placed in an age-appropriate placement, that's not for, I didn't feel I didn't interpret what I read in Trey Hargen's letter or from Cecilia, anything that Cecilia said to us, that we really had anything to say about those titles. That was a decision made at that particular library to house them in a different location, or weed them if they saw. I mean, because if some of those books aren't being circulated and they haven't, but to me the regular weeding thing should apply. Mm-hmm. So not based on that content, because
So I'll be very transparent on this. That is more of my understanding, and then if I had a question of how they handled it, then we could have a conversation, like we could, you know, go and talk to them, or we could do that, because I do trust I do like to trust
I was just a little confused about
So
all of that, because to me,
it was request, so where I'm at a loss, in a sense, is I thought that too, and I want to say, if I remember correctly, it was Paul, not throwing anybody under the bus or anything.
And I think we should.
But you requested a work study for this, for discussion opportunities, and to give space for us to look at the book. But for me, last month, I would have been, thank you for your report, what are you planning on doing with that, and then gone on from there, because I feel like they have fulfilled, other than figuring out what they are going to do in their libraries at this moment, I felt like they had fulfilled what they were requested to do as far as that letter was concerned. So for me, I mean, I'm just trying to create an opportunity for a discussion.
But there are books on that list that don't have any characters that are in violation. I mean, I have read 95% of the books on that list, and I do not find them objectionable at all, and argue that with anybody, whether you agree with me or not. That's okay, that's your opinion.
And I think there's a few things going on with this list. Like, I don't think it's just one category. I think there's
I was going to say, to me, that list was much broader than what Trey Hargett was, I thought, trying to pinpoint in compliance with what he thought the executive order said.
Well, that's one of the questions I had. One of the reasons I wanted the work study to clarify specifically why I wanted it was because we got those 90 to 95% of it. My question, and I've been operating under this assumption, but there are a lot of books here, like looking at the lab, like talking about illness, deployment, incarceration, divorce. I'm assuming that those were chosen as potential books for a resource section, like we talked about. Is that correct?
I think you were talking about,
Yeah,
that's off your list.
In the phone call that you were on, and I was on,
Yes.
we were asked to provide what we considered heavy topics,
Yes.
such as,
This is the call
so
with
it was
the state library.
Jamie,
Yeah,
Jamie.
Jamie.
Okay, yes.
and he gave examples such as, living with a stepdad or a stepmother, having a father or a mother deployed.
Yeah.
And all we did, my team, was pull those types of topics, not necessarily to put in a resource center, but we did pull those topics for you all, because that's what we were asked to do.
Okay.
And we can put them in a parental resources collection, or leave them as is. You just tell us what to do.
Okay.
And I would answer that with, I think that is a decision that you would make at your library if you thought that was which was the better placement. What I took away from what Trey Hargett said was not so much that he was asking you to flag those materials. He was giving those as other examples of books that might be included on a parent resource shelf, because a parent resource shelf should not be isolated to any one particular topic. It's, in my perception, it's books that would help me explain a situation that has occurred to my child, or to help me process that, to be able to talk with them. We might not even read that book together, but to help me kind of get in touch with my inner child and how they might perceive what's going on. So,
I could give you an example. My brother died by suicide. I may not necessarily, my son was 6 at the time. I may have wanted, I would want him to go to the library and pull a book on suicide without speaking to me first. But we do have measures in place at the libraries where we have forms, waivers, for parents to sign on, if they want their child to look at something on suicide.
But wouldn't that all go back to the parent looking at what the child was checking out before they got to the checkout desk? I mean, when I sat in all those school board meetings in the past, the conversation was repeatedly, well, but this book shouldn't be in the school library because there's not a parent there to help that child with selection process. But at the public library, the parent should be present and is completely, even more completely in charge of their child's book selection than they are even with me at a school. Even though a parent can email me and say, hey, Ms. Parker, my kid is not to check out, and I will assure them they're not getting it from me.
We have that in place. We also have signage everywhere with anyone under 18.
So to me, the idea of the parent resource shelf is how helpful do you think that will be to your patrons? And also, that is something that should be easily accessible for your adults without them having to ask the librarian. I don't want it behind the librarian. It should be just in an area where parents could easily access it and not have to ask a bunch of questions and all the things to anybody. So it should be a browsable, easily available.
Try to determine what was a heavy topic, because with suicide, I think everyone should be aware of it, in my opinion, regardless of age. But also, when my son was 6, I wasn't ready to talk about it either.
Right.
So I struggle with this, with these types of heavy topics. I don't know what my counterparts, how they do this, but all we did was pull the heavy topics together for you. They could go back on the shelf, or they could go in a parental collection.
And again, and speaking for Tracy Parker, I think that is a decision that should be handled in your building with your community. You and your employees know your community, and so how that shelf looks with you may look a little different than Gabby's or Emily's or Amy's or whatever, because your makeup of people is different. Westmoreland is a very different city than Hendersonville or Gallatin. It just is. People are people, but it is a different makeup of people. So, to me, that's where the expertise of the librarian comes in, because you know your collection and you know your community. So, and I would hope that you don't feel under the pressure of, I made the wrong decision, I put that book on the shelf and I shouldn't have, or I didn't put that book on the shelf and I shouldn't have. I don't think so. If you had someone come up and have a conversation with you about a book that they found in the general everybody books or whatever, and they were like, I don't really know if this is the best place for this, I think so, then revisit that and see. But I would hope that you don't feel a lot of microscoping or whatever going on, because that would not be my approach anyway.
So, I want to say, I have a lot of agreement. I have a lot of agreement to that. I just want to say, and I'm going to be vulnerable for one moment, and it is personal, but I want to say this of understanding. So as a child, my dad was murdered when I was a baby. I grew up in a family without a dad for a while, didn't know about what happened until I was still very young, but older. And I was bullied by many people, by adults and children in my life. I had sexual abuse from the time I was 10 to 16. So for me, when we talk heavy subjects, I sit here with a lot of respect and a lot of honor to those things. I think, but I also was a very emotional child and a very sensitive child. So those resources would be helpful if I know that's what I'm looking at or for, and they would be very distressful, not only distressing, not only stressful, but very distressing for me, because I would take it to a depth because of what I had lived. So for me, I have a sensitivity to both sides of that conversation. It was a great resource, but if I just happened across it and didn't know to be warned, that I knew this was a heavier space of what I was about to put my brain into, it would be hard. That was as a child, and I was a child who lived at the library. I hung out up there all the time, and I used it all the time. As an adult, as a parent, a lot of times we get flagged as these, meanies, but I would let my children, I had 3, I would let my children go into the children's area, and I'd say, okay, take 2 books and bring them back to mommy. And I would take the youngest child to, look around, and we'd find for the youngest child, because I was focusing in on that child. But then I had 2 that were roaming the children's area, children, but they could have come across anything as they were looking before they found a book that they brought me, and I saw. That's where a little bit of a protection and just caution, not saying throw it out in the wind, but just caution. I do think there is some wisdom to, and I agree. I think some of this is to your discretion. I trust a lot of your judgment on a lot of these things. I think that the books that were pulled were very, especially on the deeper subject things, were, I didn't see anything wrong with books. I thought they were actually great books, some of them fantastic books. But I think that just a child coming across some of those might not be the way for that to be introduced to a child. It would be through a parent knowing what they're about to look at, and then they can walk through that book with them. And that's not a control. And there are some parents that would be totally fine with them coming across that. But we do also have to consider the parents who are more cautious with that. And so that's where, when I'm hearing these subjects and these conversations, it's not to control the masses, it's to have caution or consideration to different parenting styles. We've had lots of people that sit here and they say this variety
that variety includes a lot of different aspects. That's people who are very religious, people who are not. There's respect, but they have to be considered. And so, like, well, in all the gamut of all these words that I could put out there. But, you know, I think it is okay to consider a parental area without that being taking freedom away. I don't think that's taking freedom away. I think that's giving a little caution so that parents have an option. They could let the children go to the parental area and get the book, but, you know, it's about just having some caution to some of that. That's my thought.
Is this all theoretical, or does this exist? Do you guys have parent resource shelves where you can pull and choose books? And like, that's a yes, you have. And if you don't like a book, you
In
can
the
put
children's
it
area.
in the children's area.
But it's just a upper shelf.
But it's just a shelf.
Yeah.
A kid can still check it out. It's just a
Yeah,
shelf.
yeah.
And you guys have full discretion to do that?
I mean, each library does it differently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, I have one in my library, and there's since the library opened. It's in the children's department, there's a sign, but only an adult card to check it out.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What about Gallatin?
We do not have one.
Gallatin, what about Hendersonville?
We do not have them in the lanes for them.
Hendersonville. Okay.
We have labeled them on the sign, so you just make sure, like, if they're trying to check it out, that whoever's working the front desk, for, you know, parents, that.
Unless one does or does not?
We do not have it right now.
So what are you leaning? What are your thoughts on it, Angie? Are you thinking that y'all would lean more in doing something like that, or do you feel more in the idea of? I mean, and it doesn't have to be. I mean, it could be 5 books. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a bunch of things.
Exactly.
So you're still studying that.
Well, I'm leaning toward the shelf to accommodate everyone. The parent that is more watchful, say. And then, you know, but you know, with one that's so small, we always get the book for the patron anyway. So when they say, hey, you have a topic of this.
You're getting up and going to get
So it may not be needed.
5 feet by 5 feet.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't feel like we should necessarily determine if you have a parent resource shelf or not. I think that should be, again, based on y'all's interaction with your community and your feel of people and kind of what their thoughts are. And that's what, I mean, it's just a little higher up, but it's still very easily accessible. There's no balloons or whistles or flashing lights of any sort. You know, it's just, you know, because, I mean, there are lots of topics that we have a hard time talking with little people about. And I would say there was a few books on this list that are more middle school, high school books, and I would not put them on a parental shelf because when you're talking about middle school, high school kids, they are like, hey kiddo, that's an autobiography about Jared, the author. I can't pronounce his last name. It's Polish, I think, and I can't say it. But he wrote about growing up with a mother who was addicted to heroin. And it is a fantastic book. And it speaks to, unfortunately, to so many of our children who are growing up with parents who have addictions to any variety of things. And it makes, books are mirrors and windows. They help me to see myself and understand my experiences, in addition to helping me understand how other people have had different experiences than me. So I would definitely keep several of these that on here that were middle school, high school books just in the general selection. If you didn't read something that your mama didn't know you read when you were growing up, I don't think you're being honest. I'm just saying. And not that anything that you read was necessarily bad, but I'm just saying, we're curious about things, people in that age group are.
I'm sorry. Can we please have quiet across the board?
I mean, they are very much trying to figure themselves out, and they're trying to understand their friends and the things that are going on around them, and the adults in their lives as well. So, I would hope that those would not go on a shelf. Again, in your way versus your more middle grade, you know, make those decisions about what section you think you might shelve it in. But that's just my opinion.
How do we establish, a young person walks through the door, do we give library cards down to any age group? How far down do we go?
It's birth in the policy. A parent is, yeah.
That's what a library card is. You're agreeing to follow, and you are responsible for what is checked out, and that includes using your library card to travel. You are saying you are
Just
responsible.
like we give you a credit card.
So if I bring a kid in 10 years old and turn them loose, they can't check out of it. They can grab it off the shelf, but they can't get out with it.
If they have their library card, they can check it out, and it's not a book that's been, you know, that's, they wouldn't be allowed to check out an adult book, was my understanding from things. But if it was a book that a 10-year-old was
10-year-old appropriate.
yeah, then he could check it out if he had his card. But Gabby's saying for him to get that card, his mom and daddy or some adult had to say, I will be responsible for the items that this child checks out.
So the simplest way for a parent to stop a kid from getting purchased things they weren't supposed to have was not let them have a card.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So if you don't have a card, you don't leave the building with it. And you can't get a card if you're underage unless your parent signs off on it. So the block's in the way already. The provision for keeping kids from getting those books is already in place. Now, they might get it in the building, and they might read some before they leave with it. So is that really what we're trying to hem down is what the kid can do while they're on the premises? Because they can't leave with it.
That's an interesting question, and you know, I would have let my 11-year-old read any of these. So I guess I'm a bad example of this, because I'm thrilled if my 11-year-old reads any book, honestly. I'm just thrilled. So, and I can tell you, having talked to him about some of these issues, he would not want to read them because they would make him feel uncomfortable.
He would put it back.
And he would put it back. But I also, you know, like this book, Upstaged, I'd give anything if everybody read that book. That's the sweetest book I've ever read. That book is a wonderful example of how to learn to let your friends help you. It's just such a good book.
Oh, Gabby from Dallas has something.
I'm sorry.
We also have, a child cannot be in the building unattended.
Yeah.
If they're 8 or under, that's our policy.
8?
Oh, what are you told?
I was going to say, I.
Without a car. The code of conduct that the library board approved a long time ago said 8 and under.
This is all sort of pointing out why I wanted to have this conversation, like, where we could just sit down and talk, because I didn't know what books we were talking about, first of all. And I think several of us clearly have questions about what policies and provisions are in place. And I'm thrilled that the librarian at the table has been really talking a lot, because you're a librarian. But you said the one thing that if I had my druthers, this is what we would do. We've got 5 librarians right there. This is your all's job. This is why you're paid, is to make these choices and determinations. And there's policies in place if there's a reconsideration, but our job as a board is to support you. So that's kind of where I stand. I mean, having looked at this, having heard what you all say, I don't think there's any real thing the board needs to do here is it lets you do your jobs and support you in them. And if you have questions, we will be there for you. If you think you need a resource shelf, some of you have those, and you can work together to see like what works well, what doesn't. I would also think that if you want to put one of those together, that it's not a permanent or static thing.
Right.
That's going to be fluid. It's going to change with time. Books are going to come. Books are going to go. Looking at some of the books in here, that I think some of them haven't been checked out in 5 or 6 years and would be subject to normal weeding anyway. Your librarians make those decisions. Some of them are checked out all the time and are clearly, being read by the community. We want to keep those books available for the community that wants them. And I want to say one other thing, because I have to push back a little bit on this idea. And thank you, Chairman Grammer, for also saying this. But correct me if I'm wrong, former commissioner and commissioner, there are 200,000-ish people in Sumner County?
220,000.
Gosh, we're growing. 220,000. That number is not a monolith. We're not hegemonic in the way we think. We all have different opinions. We all have different values. We share a lot of values, but we also have different ones. Our job as a public library is to not have those value judgments. Our job is to provide information for our entire community. And this came down from, Secretary of State, that's the community's job. What does the community get? What does the community want? Well, our community is vast. 220,000 people that, there's 30 people in this room and we have wildly different opinions on things. So we have to come to accommodation that the community is not of a single mind about anything. We think differently, and I think the best way to do that is to have a public library that has information available for the entire community. So I just want to let y'all know.
Well, and I will say, what alarms one person, another person doesn't think twice about. So I think we have to be careful in thinking that we are, I don't want to use the word policing, but, that we're trying to help people. But what I'm saying is, my daughter has lived up north for a while when her husband was in school, and I was always just floored being around out public with the language and some of that they didn't think anything about, and I was just my southern self going, we're in the grocery store. I don't think we need to be letting that fly. Nothing's happening that's worthy of that. So I think, again, what one person is alarmed by is not a thing at all for someone else. And so, to me, when I think of the parental resource shelf, I think of some of the topics that we talked about, and some of these books go into a lot of effort to explain certain things. So I think in some cases they aren't really necessarily aimed at the child so much as they are a parent to start with. Yeah, they're tools for adults. So, but I don't think that we need to, I don't know, I just don't think we need to get too carried away at all. So, and like I said, I hope that if any of these titles are weeded in your library, that they are weeded under your normal weeding practices and not based on a personal judgment. And I can tell you, as a librarian of 27 years, that is hard sometimes. That is hard sometimes. But,
Well, let me say this, and probably like a lot of other stuff I say. From a perspective, I'll talk about grandkids. My kids can read anything they want to, and my grandkids, so I better jump enough. My great-grandson. There's things that I would not have him exposed to.
everything in it.
Yes. Now, if a system is in place that his mother, which is my granddaughter, knew how to go through this process, that he would not be accidentally exposed to stuff that nobody would want him exposed to, I could be comfortable with that. But the two, I would feel some comfort if I know there was a two in place she could censor what he was gonna wind up with.
Boy, isn't that what she's doing when she's looking through it before he checks it out?
Well,
But
yes,
he has access to it.
My
She's
children, I was
distracted
sitting
and
right
nothing
next to them if we were in the public library.
Okay.
We
Well,
were, especially when they were little like that. And that was when Gallatin was in where the extension office is now, so I could have stood in the adult section and watched them in the children's section. But yeah, when we were picking out books, that was something we did together when they were little. And the other thing that I think, and again, this may not hold any water in your bucket at all, but we often, as adults, look at things in a different filter than what the kids are.
Yes.
So if you're, and I have two grandsons that are coming up, if they're looking at a book where a little boy's playing dress up and however, or a little girl's playing dress up and however, I don't think that they're gonna have the same thoughts about what we're doing that I might put on that.
they won't look for a second agenda.
No,
You will, but
I
they
will, but they
That's
won't,
right.
especially if they're little. And so, and they can't read, quite frankly.
Yeah,
So I can go about that however I choose,
well,
and we can put that book back, and we don't have to visit that book again if that was one that I thought, oh, I'm not real comfortable with that as a grown-up.
I want to be able to say, would like to be able to say, that you don't have to fret about that. There is a criteria in place that will protect your 8-year-old if you take them to the library. Now, they can't get out of that book because they can't check it out. So, now, what age does that start and stop?
My understanding from the bylaws was they could renew their card without appearing at 16.
Okay.
Is that accurate, ladies?
Libraries are 18.
Okay, it said in there 16 in one of the versions of the bylaws I read. Say that again.
They can go to war, they can check out a book.
Well, I agree with that.
Well, okay. So, you almost gotta think about the age divisions. There's a point that we as parents lose a certain level of control.
Right.
It starts with the learner's permit in the car, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But we all probably would like to feel good about the fact that they won't accidentally wind up leaving the library with a book they don't need to have.
Okay, and I would argue this. Why would I say necessarily that it's a book they don't need to have?
Okay, then I don't want them to have. Okay.
Because I've read lots of books that I thought, I don't really care for that. That didn't really line up for me. And so I didn't revisit that. But then there's been other books that I've read a number of times. And so, but that's all part of exploring your world. And I see, now, again, I was very protective of my children and their different age ranges and what we watched and what we read and those types of things. But especially once they're getting middle school and older, they need to start to have some level of autonomy, not unsupervised, but some level of selection so that they can have conversations with you about things that are very different from their upbringing so that you can then reinforce your world's view and your values with them and help to shape them in that. But if you never have those conversations, you lose the opportunity to impart those core family values that your family has to your child.
Well, okay. Back up. I dropped my 10-year-old off because I got to run to the drugstore.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't.
Anita says no.
We got that covered, right? You can't dump them. You're right. If they ride up on their bicycle at 9 years old, they'll come
They can come in or
and get
whatever.
water and leave, right? Okay. Well, okay. The 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 would be good to be down on a piece of paper. I mean, I think everybody
in our policy.
Yes, I mean, and I don't care if it's adamant. I don't care if it's a dagger stuck in it. But a I've been involved with is I got settled on them when I got over my ignorance. And I expect there's a lot of that about what literally goes on in a library. I think if you had 50 people in Sumner County write down how you use the library, you'd get 50 different answers, unless you're lucky enough to get 2 librarians in that 50, you know. So clarification may be the biggest word that needs to be used in all of this. Now, I don't want kids to have access to, and I'll just say inappropriate and not describe it, inappropriate information that they can put under their arm and take on with them. Now, does the parent get to make that judgment? Well, yes, society makes that judgment. We all collectively make that judgment, what is inappropriate, because we set liquor laws. We don't have bootleggers, we legalize it, you know. And that's where a lot of this stuff goes. But I think the lack of understanding typical process for a library is to go in and look through books and pick out something you think you might like and go and check it out. Well, if that's something you might like, somebody's got to make the call that we deem that inappropriate. And somebody's got to be in a
Can you just say that it's not age appropriate? Because to me, inappropriate has
that's
a
all
little
I can
different
say.
connotation.
That's all I'm allowed to
What
say.
a 6-year-old would
That's right.
read and process is much different than a 4th or 5th grader.
That's right.
Or a freshman or a senior.
Yep, I can't tell you to not let my
Because that was, Trey Hargison was
granddaughter have it, but I can tell you not let my great-grandson have it. So there is a difference there. And maybe the most of this problem is with clarity. Most of it probably gets down to my interpretation of what I think's going on, and your interpretation, and yours, and somebody else's. And some things that'll bother me won't bother y'all. That don't make you wrong. Almost makes you wrong if you don't agree with me, but.
Gabby?
Yeah.
At one point in history, when Leah Mae Dennon was the lawyer here, the board had her look over a proposed document to have parents sign that whether their child could check out books without them present. And we actually have it in our system as an option with a check mark. I actually brought that form back when all of this first started 3 years ago, and I was reading out because I didn't have time to go through my shelf immediately. And to try to be proactive, I brought that paper back and asked parents to sign it, and they were very happy to sign it. And it was real quick. They got most of the pages. We got the back sign page. We filed them. It was no problem whatsoever. But it didn't go over well with the form level one, and so we quit doing that. But that form is out there, and it has been approved by lawyers. And I would love to share that with y'all.
Yeah. That's sort of like the graduated library card. Is that sort of not the same thing?
I was going to ask a question about graduated library cards. So, because Rutherford County has graduated library cards, so would you say that you have that in your library? Or you have some version of that?
Not at this time. If a parent signs their child up to get a library card in my library, they can get from any section in the building.
The child could check out anything. If the parent.
Yeah, so to get a card, they need a parent. Once they have a card, they're like.
Okay, so the graduated library card is saying, okay, this is a child between this age and that age, and the parent is still.
But let's just talk about what is real rather than theoretical.
Okay.
Please clarify.
We do not do that. We leave it up to the parent.
Okay, so we have.
So you were saying if the parent lets the child use the adult library card,
The
they can
cards
check
are all
out
the
with
same. The parent has to be with the child to check out a book.
No, it's they're 0 to 18
We have
and
family cards.
They have family.
So the parent can see everything. That's why we do that, is so that the parent can see anything. Because if the library lets the child get a card, we can't tell the parent what's on that card. we've been told in the past by legal.
Now, if they're a minor,
I think we
I'm
can.
gonna find out about that, because
Yeah.
that's not true for us in the school system,
No,
because they're a
it's
minor,
legal, yeah,
because they're a minor.
but the parents signed up for it and that is their written consent, and the parents. It's just what we were told by legal, I just followed.
So
But that sounds standard. When I was 10 years old, 12 years old, it's a library. Everything's in the library.
We have never had a single complaint by people who actually use the library that their child got access to anything. And we have hundreds of thousands.
And most of them don't even know to go looking for whatever they think of.
Well, Portland does it different. Tell us about Portland.
We have individual cards, so when a parent signs up, they say, I want to sign my child up for a card, the child gets a card with their own barcode number and everything. And then we actually put it connected to the parent, so the parent is initially, ultimately responsible for it. But then we put them in their age group, so it's 0 to 6, 6 to 12, 12 to, and they can only check out what it falls within that, so it's like a 0 to 6 would be, would be like,
If we had a
picture
13-year-old,
books,
they could go check out
Anything
young
that's
adults or.
or juvenile section.
And that's Millersville too? Hendersonville. Where are y'all at?
We have them cards.
You have what, say one?
Okay, we do have them.
Similar to Gallatin.
You are able to see, yeah.
Similar to Gallatin. And Westmoreland. Okay. Okay, thank you guys. The age appropriateness, I'll say this, I don't love the, I want to be very respectful when I say the board. It feels to me sometimes like we as a board can shirk our duties and say, well, leave it up to the directors. It's not fair to them, every controversial thing, and then to be judge, jury, and executioner for every single book that comes in. And when it comes to age appropriate books, these books are written for kids. It's a kid's book, so there's no age appropriateness. That's why I really like the parental resource shelf as maybe a thing. I guess I would ask the board if we were to mandate that every library establish a parental resource shelf, and maybe we mandate some of these books that we decide need to go on there. Would that be a policy draft change, or would that be a simple motion? That's what I'd love the board to talk about without voting and without. Has it come up in the past? I know I always dig up old dirt.
If we're requiring them to have a certain shelf or something, that would be a
I
policy.
think that would be
I would think that would be a policy.
That's my understanding anyway.
I would think
Can you make a list of what topics have to be separated?
Or titles of books.
Yeah, see, till you get on really thin ice.
Because I wouldn't want to mandate any topic, and it would need to be a such as.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if it's a topipic, exactly.
I mean, if we
start getting to
If
specific.
we provided any kind of suggestions, it would be just a suggestion, because not every book that dealt with that topic would necessarily
Giving,
We have a list of books from the library directors asking us what to do with these books. Do we not? They already asked the library director.
They just fulfilled their duty in making a list of books. They're not looking for our permission on what to do with them. I mean, that wasn't.
We have the ability to curate our libraries.
but that's the thing, is I don't think we should.
I understand that. I'm trying to establish the.
I think my opinion about that is that the board can establish some parameters, and yet we can get in the weeds and like say this book here, this book there, that book there, but that's where we've overstepped and crossed the line. Because they're the librarians. And I think it's not to put the responsibility on them on the one hand, on the other hand, that's the job. It's always been the job since libraries existed. And we can support you like that. We can also acknowledge that there are going to be people that say, I don't like this book here. And I would want all of you all to feel confident that too specific, that's when it gets dangerously close to opening us up to some legal vulnerabilities. I think that the shelf is a tool that can be used when necessary and to give these guys the option. I mean, you already have it. You don't need us to do that. You can just make that call. And if you want to put some of these on there or other books that you have, and again, it would be a fluid thing. It's going to change over time. That to me would be the best way to do it. I don't know that the board needs to take an official action.
They don't even all have shelves, Paul.
No, they don't. They don't all want them.
We would have to establish them to even have shelves, and then we'd have to establish authority to put stuff on the shelves.
I don't think we do, because that's
They could always go make their own shelves.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what this work study was about.
Yeah, that's what I don't think they
And
have.
I
Sharing
think it's
ideas,
serving
things like
and not mandating it, and then not giving more guidance. I think it's stripping our duties. Our library directors do not own the libraries. Citizens, Sumner County own the libraries. I said this last time, I'll say it again. The commission has put us in charge to guide governance of those libraries. And I think not taking those steps to, this is why you have to get battles on this. Not taking those steps, I think, would be stripping our duties. And I think that's something I'm going to look at.
But those libraries have never had a resource shelf or been compelled to see a need for.
We are not
a
president.
resource shelf.
Or have, Millersville didn't have a single book, so y'all don't need a resource.
So, what-
Millerstown thinks that's your everything.
have you read our collection and development policy as it is currently? So, if a patron has a problem with the book, they can ask to have it reconsidered. So, and I feel like we're in an era where that would be taken quite seriously. So the directors get to read the book. They can ask to have it removed. They can ask to have it put in the adult section. Because we're talking about protecting children here, not adults.
I agree.
So I think and with books, what is your parameter for weeding? 3 to 5 years?
3 to 5 years, but it's also based on topic, checkout, publication date, if it's a hardback versus a paperback, the condition, if I know that there's like going to be a Netflix show about it, I'm going to keep it. It's going to become popular and I want to rebuy it. So weeding is a very long, arduous, precise process that takes me weeks before I get people from holy books to look at them.
So I just think there are ways to do that in place already.
I see your point. I don't want to.
Yeah.
I don't want to dismiss what you said. I see where you're coming from. Where I think I see it a little differently. Like our role as a board is like in terms of more broad oversight. And when we start like pulling specific titles, that to me is going too far. That's a programmatic thing. Like, that's what we hire them to do. And we support their decisions and help them through that. And this is also, I would say, I don't know that this is going to work. I'll just say, I don't know if it will. What does that mean? That, we could try this and it doesn't work. Like people still are, there's a new issue or something else that happens and it's like, this just does not work. I have no idea. So I would say this is a work in progress and this would be my first step because I like to proceed cautiously. I would like to try this, see what happens, and then before having to try to, I think trying to create policy before trying this way to like let you guys be librarians and curate this stuff the way you feel like we've told you the parameters. If you need a shelf, you can do a shelf. You've already done it. Some of you have. If you want to put some different books on here, there's, some of these are examples, but they're not necessarily the only ones you're going to find, and they won't all necessarily go there. I would fully expect a bunch of these books are going to stay exactly on the shelf where they are right now. I think that and and I think that's really all that needs to happen right now. That's what I would do.
I'd like to get Angie.
Oh, sure.
I'm sorry.
I wanted to, as, you know, because being new to the position, Red River Region gives us a lot of guidance. I mean, you guys know that they're in a consultative role. They always say, we can't tell you what to do, but.
Yes.
And, I asked Joe Beth, they're expert in collection and waiting to come to Westmoreland. She's gonna be there next week to teach us. We're all new at Westmoreland. None of us have more than 6 months on the job. And so they're coming to spend a lot of time with us because unfortunately Westmoreland hasn't really waited in years. So we have a lot of old books. So Joe Beth, like I said, Joe Beth is going to come spend a lot of time. I let Erica and Pam know this yesterday during their visits, and I'm excited about that. I also want to thank again my counterparts here, you know, sharing their policies with me, and because Westmoreland didn't have a policy on any of this stuff. So this conversation to me is helpful, but I am going to lean on the region to help me because they're also librarians and experts, and I'm excited about that.
I would feel better about you leaning on a librarian than me, honestly. I mean, and I've worked with libraries for a long time, but I'm not a collection specialist.
Right.
But the person you're talking about is.
Yes.
And I think that's the way this is supposed
And
to
each
work.
of your collections are curated for the people in your community, so they're not going to look exactly the same, and they shouldn't look exactly the same, because what one book, Emily, person who purchases for her goes, oh, we're going to get 5 or 6 of these. Y'all might only get 1, and it might get checked out occasionally, where her books stay checked out all the time. So that's part of why I really think that is something that lives in your house, because you are curating your collection for your community, and so you're having materials that your community is requesting, or you know from being in that community they're interested in, and things like that, beyond the award-winning books and the, you know, all the other things that people.
They have mule sales in Westmoreland. They might get a book on mule
They
sales.
do. Exactly. Exactly.
So, would y'all like to put something together for the board's consideration? Would y'all, you would want to do that, or you wouldn't want to do that? I'm not necessarily talking about policy. I'm talking about the day-to-day, the 1, 2, 3. How do you do this, or how you think it ought to be done? Now, we've sat here and talked about it, and there's about 3 different ways. Something come up. Yes, we had it. No, we don't have it. You don't.
I think we're all making the decisions we make currently based on the community we serve.
Okay.
There was discussion at one time of doing a manual for all 5. And just like Tracy said, what happens in Portland doesn't happen in Hendersonville. What happens in Hendersonville has no bearing on Gallatin. So, I mean, each individual library has individual patrons also. So, you know, me sitting here saying, oh, we allow 20 items checked out. Millersville and Westmoreland may be like, if everybody takes 20 books, we're going to have nothing.
Hey.
You know, so.
Well, I have kids at school that ask me in 6th grade, can I check out more than 1 book in a series?
Yeah.
I'm like, well, certainly you can.
Well,
But in elementary school, they do.
Hendersonville, I think, allows a lot of items checked out, don't they, True?
Well, your collection size is different.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what I'm trying to get at. Our collection size is different, so what works for one library may not work for all 5. So the idea of having one huge manual for all libraries never really
I mean,
works.
there's some aspects that will be similar in everybody.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
I'd like to be able to share those, because they have been sharing with me.
Absolutely.
I take what I need.
Absolutely.
It's been really helpful.
I guess what I was talking about was like a day-to-day operations manager manual. That, I said, we're kind of like different little nuances for each library. Yeah.
5 different organizations, 5 different manuals.
Yeah.
Because you have different size staffs, so you have different responsibilities based on the size of your staff.
But now,
People wear more hats or different hats based
if
on.
you're talking about, you know, what age can a child be in a library on their own, yes.
Yes, that should
apply to all of us.
Yes.
Yes.
Is that written down somewhere countywide?
Well,
It's in our policy.
yes,
So,
we
you know, unattended children's policy.
So that's a question I have. I have, in what I found from a couple different folks provided for me, policy, bless you, additions of different policy things, but there are gaps in it. So there's like some stuff in the table of contents that there's no copy of that particular policy in here. And I have several things that just say draft, they don't have a finality to it. So I really think if we're gonna baseline look at things, we need to all have the same thing. I mean, where is that golden ticket?
So the bylaws and policy committee was really working in on that because they're what we found, and I happen to be on it for, I think, the 2.5 years I've been on. But we found that there are multiple drafts or big versions of, or when there was a system and when there's so there was like this many people putting hands to, but a lot of times not getting to completed form or past the draft form. So we were really trying to streamline through that and getting a lot of that stuff cleaned up or made fresh or, you know, whatever, so that it could be good. And it kind of is at a halt right now because we don't have committees that are getting to zone in on that. But, I mean, that is something that's been a desire and want to, trying to take one, you know, like, just, we were getting those things.
So where are those?
Right now, I mean, the way I have them are, like, as they were brought through.
So do you have them, like, as a digital version, or do you have them
they're
printed?
in the supplemental, like, I have them from the supplemental information from these. That's how I've had them.
But there's not like a central folder.
But there should be somewhere
The current
that all of the current policies are
I mean, and I would love to even see it, I would love to see that whole thing completed, because there's a lot of information that needs to get.
So that would be a great study session for us as a board, maybe in April. Or I don't know, but I'm saying that could be a study session, because we wanted to do things together. So we can say, okay, tonight at our meeting, we're gonna look at this section of the manual, and we're gonna make sure everybody has the same version of that section. And, but we do need, I think, to get, we've got to get it all in one spot, because as you said, some stuff is left over from when, the organization, was different and stuff, so, but we really need to get it all current, because that's how we can look to say, oh, we need to set a standard age of, you need to be at least this old for your mama to drop you off, or you get to ride your bicycle and stay at the library without an adult. You know, those kind, so that we can put some of that stuff on the same page. So I would really like for us to do, that, and that would be a great study session, or we could do a special call to, I mean, because I had committee meetings outside of our regular meetings, so we could do the same thing. So these are the things we're looking at this meeting to make sure we're on the same page, and we can create a digital copy of that so that everybody has access to that.
Great. There actually is a page in the Sumner County website that is for Sumner County libraries, and I think that's where all of the.
It should have been there, but it's my understanding it wasn't there anymore, and when I looked for it, it was not.
But that
was my understanding as well, that it was supposed to be there, and it's not there. And I just feel like, as a citizen, I should be able to click on that and see, what does the library board policy say about X, Y, or Z? And so I really feel like, not in shirking our duties, that to me is a much more important thing for us to get on the same page,
even something to have in our full practice. I appreciate it.
One question. So we, as I understand it, we do still need to respond to Secretary Hargett.
You said that.
Because it's gone.
So, the paperwork was officially sent in on time and we did our job. But it was acknowledging that they were waiting to hear from, that we were going to have a meeting. So it's just gonna be, they need to decide, you know, what to do with those books.
So when we
And then
meet
I can send in a report that just says, we've had our meeting and this is what we can sign that off. They just want to see action on it. Trey Hargett's office just wants to
what
see.
they chose to do.
They wanted them to answer those questions, see that they had done it, and then what that next step is. I can do that. Cecilia and I can talk about that. Of what I
So
need.
will that be something we look at in March at our meeting?
I will talk to Cecilia and see what that
next
part
step
is, and then I will be doing it.
And also, is that, that's talking to the directors, is that enough time for you all to?
Well, and I'm saying too, that I will find out what
okay.
she needs, what we need.
If there is any,
If there is
anything
Yeah.
to do.
They need to follow up. Got it. So, for the meantime.
It would just be to have that answer at least.
Got it. Okay, I see. My fault.
Any other discussion needed? There is one thing that we have an upcoming, special call meeting that's gonna need to happen around budget things. It's for this next coming year.
Was the last one.
25th is 2 weeks from today.
So
That's on a Thursday.
we had talked about we had said 25th, 26th. Would 25th work for you? Is
What?
you're saying?
What do we?
And I'm looking at her because she is the person with a lot of your budget. Will 25th work for you?
What is 26 better for you?
The 26th is a Thursday. Wednesdays, since we've changed the time frame, like I have 3 months out of the year in the winter and then 3 months in the fall, I have a commitment that I have to be someplace by 6 o'clock.
So do you want to do it on a different day?
Should we do it on Thursday? Well, I can say, as long as, you know, I can leave by 5:30 or so, because I've got to be, I have a responsibility for another meeting. If we can, but if we do it on the 25th, as long as we're, you know, voted
This
on
is
all
what we're
of it.
looking at, right?
That's why you
These
have
are the
everything else.
preliminary?
Yes.
Oh, I'd say we just stick to standard and do it Wednesday, and our end time will be 5:30. That's when you need to look.
Yeah, and I mean, as long as, everybody comes prepared and you spend the next 2 weeks looking over these and talking to the, directors about any questions that you might have, so that when we come together, since
We're ready to
We'll
go.
have it.
we will, all your questions will be answered, and then we can go over them and say, does anybody have any clarifying, things that we need to amend on, you know, Gallatin's budget or Portland's budget? And then there are, 2 things that I'll call out, Hendersonville and Westmoreland. They do need board approval to make some budget adjustments because they're going to fall short on insurance and dental. And that will be on the agenda. I'll make sure that we have, but it will all be budget related. It's in your
To
paperwork.
get to the end of the fiscal year, is that what you're
Yes,
saying?
yes. So there will be some specifics on there, but it will all be on the agenda. Because it's coming out of payroll.
Mm-hmm.
Just some things we need to vote on and then for next year.
Oh, you're moving stuff in the line item. That told you it had to be done.
Yeah, and it's, well, because it's coming out of payroll. The board has to approve it because it's coming out of payroll. That's the only reason.
Who told you that?
And I've got a note on there.
I saw that.
This is the second year.
Yeah, okay. So make sure I just know that
It's in.
between her and me, make sure that we know so I can put it
Yeah,
on.
I was just making sure because
It doesn't affect the top line
Cause
number,
it-
it's just
cause
moving
you're-
money.
Right, it's just
because
right.
you're taking out of.
But if you do that, there's a certain way you can do it that does not require a vote, and there's a certain way you do it that does require a vote. This is just that. It's not changing the. No, it's not changing anything. It's just coming out of payroll. It'll all be on the agenda. But everything will be budget minded on the 25th at 4 o'clock.
Do y'all need that before, like?
No. They've got money in those funds to cover the next
You'll
Bill
just
cycle.
need extra money, probably to have a director for like
Right.
5 months.
Right. I know you've got
Paying that salary, so I should have it.
yeah, but by March, they'll have to have it so they can pay
We can
bills.
we'll discuss those details there, but yes, thank you for asking that, making sure that's covered.
These are all the budgets laid for you. Did I hear you?
Right.
Okay.
So our expectation is between now and the 25th to study these, and if we have a question, to talk to that director specifically and say, hey, what's up with that, or why, whatever, so that when we come on the 25th, we are
Prepared to approve.
getting it done.
And then we're all on the same page. And we'll look at one budget at a time,
Right.
and we'll say, Paul, do you have any questions on Gallatin? Tracy, and we'll just all
And if
say,
you look at the budget, a lot of times it says why, like if there's an increase, so a lot of just really
Yeah.
look at the budget first.
Yeah.
A lot of times they have their
Yeah.
explanation there, but if you.
Thank you for bringing those in.
if we also email the full board or electronic copies?
That would be great, just for reference.
How does that normally, yeah, I mean, I'm just.
It couldn't hurt anything.
yeah.
Do I need to resend mine again?
No, somebody's already, I was gonna say, we've gotten it, well, you've already sent it, no.
Please look at the
Unless
email.
something, yeah, unless something changes. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to print it because I know
Yeah.
it's easier to.
Oh, I like the paper ones,
So-
because I can make notes.
Yeah, I can.
We are clear on that, so, there's no vote, so, let's adjourn.
All right.
Sure, thank you, Madam.
Thank you, guys.
Steve.
Turn back to-